Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Timmy Kemza James. So in this video we are going to be learning how to make this ruched dress. So it has this ruching effect on the front and it will help conceal the tummy area. So let's just jump into it, guys.
So guys, for this pattern, for this dress, I'm going to be using this basic bodies blog that I have from a previous tutorial. So I'm going to be linking this blog up here in case you don't know how to draft a basic blog. So what I'm going to do is to alter this pattern a little bit. And I'm also going to be using this really beautiful fabric from my collection. See how beautiful it is. So it's an Ankara fabric and it's really lovely, guys. So first off, I'm going to be cutting the back of the dress. So I'll keep the pattern aside and I'll lay my fabric so that I can match my pattern and cut out the back. So that dress pattern you see there is our front bodies, guys. So that's why I need to do a little bit of alteration so I can get it to work for the back in half. And I placed my pattern nicely. Now on the hem side here, I added sewing allowance on the hem and I pinned down my pattern on the dress. Mind you, this pattern does not have sewing allowance, so I left this extra here which I'll be using to add the sewing allowance that I desire. Now for my alteration is this. I want part of my back neckline to slope towards the front. That's to come down towards the front. So I'm going to create that extension. So I just want it to come down by, let's say, 1 inch. So I'm going to, from the beginning of my shoulder here, I'll mark 1 inch, and at this point as well I'll mark 1 inch to create an extension for the back shoulder. So I'm going to be removing this 1 inch when I want to work on the front side. I'll remove it out from the front shoulder. So when I do that, I'm going to mark. Now for my shoulder, I do not want it to be my exact shoulder measurement. I want a little bit more. So from this my shoulder point, which will be here, I'll add half of an inch to that, just so it drops a little bit more on my shoulder. And for my neckline, I do not want this depth of on my neckline, so I'm just going to mark around 1 or 1.5 inches on the back neckline. So let's just work with 1.5 inches, right? So I'll just go ahead and gently curve like so, which I'll be trimming much later. So when I do that, I'll just trace off my armhole. Then I'll mark around 1.5 inches sewing allowance. I'll do the same thing on the waist side and the hip as well, and the hem as well. I add 1.5. Then I'll just go ahead and follow it up. Then I'll cut out So here is my back pattern, which I'm going to be cutting a yoke for the back pattern much later. But now I'm going to take out my panel and I'll work on the front for you to see. So for the front, you notice drapes around the center front. So I'm not going to add that extension for my button overlap. I'm not going to add the extension. Now that 1 inch that I added on the back, I'm going to subtract it from the front measurement. So I'll just go ahead and mark 1 inch here and 1 inch like so. Then I'll cut that out. So that other one from the back will overlap to give it a complete side on the front here. So here we go. So this is now our proper front measurement. So one thing I'm going to do now is to create that that fullness that we have in the front. That's the drapery that is happening on the front side. So I'm going to be using these lines, and I'll be slashing and spreading. So I'll add another one around here. Then on this side below the hip as well, I'll add another one. Then I'll just go ahead and add another one around here like so. Now before I finish off, I'll measure what I have, the length I have here in front. So I have around 36.5. Now I'm going to add that hemming allowance that I have, which is 1.5. So I'm going to have a total of 38.5 for the hemming, including the hemming allowance. Then you keep that 38.5 measurement aside and make sure you don't forget that. So I'm just going to go ahead and slash my pattern like so. The reason is you want to be able to create volume, so I'm not cutting through till the hem. I'm just cutting to this point. Mind you, I'm not even worried about any dots on this because I do not want this pattern to be complicated. I want it to be in such a way that even a beginner can attempt this. So that's why I'm not working on any dots or closing any dots and opening any one here. So by the time I'm done doing this, I'll just nicely keep my pattern aside. Then I bring my fabric back. So you lay the pattern back down, and you remember that 1.5 inch on the hem. I'll put it there. Now I'm going to decide how much I want to be pleating, how much fabric you want in between. So let me measure out around 2 inches in between each other, and you pin. You can also tape it down. So on this side, I just arranged them and gave space of like 2 inches up till around the bust side. So on the chest side, I didn't give as much. I just left a little bit of allowance because I don't want too much folding on this side, right? Now you remember our 1.5 inch allowance. So this is now the armhole point. So from this armhole side, I'm adding my 1.5 inches allowance like so. So you just want to add that all through till the hem of the dress. So one thing you notice is you see the dress is now looking like slanted and all. So on this side, which is the center front of the dress, I'm going to be adding around 0.75 sewing allowance just to enable me sew that, and also or you could even make it 0.5 inches So I'm just going to be cutting this out. So on the center front line, that point where we notched, to know where we need to gather, so I would loosen my stitch so I can start stitching from the notched point. You can see that was where the pattern paper started. You remember I said I didn't want to slash the front side because I don't want um anything much on that point. So I'm going to start sewing from there. Don't forget that our stitches are loose, and you can decide to make use of pleats instead. That's totally up to you. So you sew to that point where you have your next notch, which is here. So when I get there, I'll just raise my foot up and I'll cut my thread out. Then I'll make gathers. I'm going to measure what I have here. You remember that 38.5 that we made initially? So that's what you want to have on this side. So I'll measure it like so to have 38.5. So I still have extra, so I need to gather it in a little bit more. So by the time I'm done, I'm going to stitch this to hold my gathers. Now I'll return my stitch length back to the regular thing. So here we have our center front. So when I'm done like so, I'm going to come over with that one of those strips that I ironed, and I added hemming gum in it. So what you want to do is to put it so it would form the overlap in the front. So I'm going to first off close off this side. So on this extreme of it, I'll just turn it over like so, and I will stitch. I just want to close off that end, because I'm going to use it to seal the raw edge, that side where, and it's going to double as my button overlap. So I'll just turn it over like so, and I push it out with my scissors to get it nice and pointed. So when I do that, I'll go ahead and hem the I'll hem that front side of the dress where I'm working with. Now on the center front of our dress, now that point which I closed is going to, our hem will enter into it. You know, we've made it sort of like a bias tape, so we want to feed it in like so, and we are going to be sewing and sandwiching. So I'll be sandwiching the raw edges inside of it like so. So I'll just tuck it in by, let's say, that half of an inch that we had initially. So that's just what
So
I'm
by
going
the
to be
time
using to
I
tuck.
finish
So I'm
binding
just putting
that
it
edge
inside
and
of
having
it
my
by half
front,
of
I'll
an
do the
inch.
same thing to the other side, and this is what it will look
So I'll
like.
just
So
go
this is so
ahead.
beautiful, guys. So this will be where my buttons will sit and my buttonhole on the other side. So now I'm going to go back to the sewing table to join the back side of the dress, and of course the collar and other side of the dress. So this is the back. I will just match my back side as well. Then I'll sew the shoulder, and I'll bring my facing as well to clean up this seam. So my facing will actually be the first to sit. That my facing is going to sit right side facing up or facing me. Then I'm going to be putting the front side um on top of it. That's the wrong side of the face, the front side on top of that, then the back side as well. So this is my facing, and the right side is facing me. Then my front side will come next. So the wrong side of the facing is the one that is facing me right now. So I'll put the other side as well. Then I'll bring the back side of the dress, and I'll match it to the face. So now the wrong side of the front and the wrong side of the back will be facing each other. So that's going to be inside. Then on the front side, behind the front side is going to be the facing, so that by the time I join them, I'll bring the facing back, and then the wrong side of the facing will be on the back side of the dress, so it will clean up the seam on that side. So basically just look at what I'm doing, because explaining that is a little bit tricky. But then here is the pattern: the wrong side first, then the front, then the back. So by the time you flip the facing, it will lie on the back side of the dress. So the facing is just on the back side. So I'll just go ahead and sew that using 1/4 inch sewing allowance, or whatever sewing allowance you're most comfortable with, or you left on your dress. You go ahead and work with that. So by the time I do that, I'll bring it over to the back side, so you can see that the facings are nice and clean. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'll go ahead and top stitch, right? So you see the back side is clean, the front side is clean. So I'll just go ahead and do the same thing. So if you're watching up until now, thank you for staying tuned, and please give my video a thumbs up. It goes a long way to help me, and subscribe to my channel. Right, if you're not yet subscribed, please join the family and share my video with your friends, guys. So this is me doing the other side of it. So when I'm done, I'm just going to top stitch and lay it on top. I'll lay the facing on just the back and move the front side away. Then I'll go ahead and stitch the facing on the back, just to create that nice seam behind there, and it will also serve as a design. But first, make sure you top stitch on your sewing allowance fit on the back side, so that you know your seam allowance are on that side, just so when you iron it, it's going to sit down nice and proper. So that's what I'm doing now, and then I'll do the other side. So by the time I was done, I just went ahead to stitch down the back facing on top of the bag to hold that nicely, and I trimmed off my excess and made a notch where I'm going to be joining my sleeve. So the next thing now is to join my sleeve. So I just matched my sleeve. You make sure that your sleeve was cut exactly the size of your armhole, or you start joining from the midpoint, whichever works for you. So I joined my sleeve right side facing right side. Then I started making pleats. Now my sleeve, I cut it out with excess because I wanted sort of a gathers around the shoulder to sort of give me puffiness on that side. But if you want a regular plain sleeve, you go ahead and do that. So I'm just making pleats on it at the middle point until it matches completely. So by the time I'm done joining this sleeve, I'll do the other side of it like so, and then I'll hem the sleeve as well. So by the time I'm done doing the sleeve, I'll do the other sleeve, and I'm going to close off the dress, starting from the sleeve all the way to the hem of the dress. Now for me, I wanted a slit at the lower side of the dress. So when I get close to the hem, I'm going to make a slit around there. And when I'm done, I'll go ahead and fix a collar and also do my buttonholes and fix my buttonholes later. So when I do the collar, I'm going to be linking a video of how to cut and sew a collar up here for you to see. So you always refer to that video if you want to see how I did that. So overall, this is it about the dress. And if you're watching up till now and you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and share my videos with your friends, guys. So that will be it. See you in my next video, guys. Bye.